Hello again, My Story VNP here for you again. And tonight we have a special guest, an author of 38 books. Is Bracha Goetz. So I know that you're clapping at home, but yeah. So welcome and please introduce yourself to us.
Okay, my name is Bracha Goetz. Actually, we don't pronounce the O, so it's Bracha Goetz, and I'm the author of 38 spiritual children's books that help children's souls to shine.
Okay.
And then I'm the author of one book for adults. It's my memoir, and it's about overcoming overeating joyfully, and it's about finding the purpose to life and how they both have to do with each other, how I was able to overcome food addictions by filling my soul, basically. Yes.
Okay. So let's get into the interview then. Please tell us what do you think is the purpose of our lives here?
Yes. So what happened was, even though I looked like I was having a very successful life on the outside, I was a student at Harvard University, and then I went on to medical school, and I was studying to be a psychiatrist, but truthfully, within me, I was getting sicker and sicker. Like, I looked successful on the outside, but inside, my soul was starving. And so I had different kind of eating disorders, like fluctuating between starving myself and binge eating, like one or the other. So, and it was so crazy, and it was really taking over my life, so that I call it an addiction, because life was becoming unmanageable at that time. And again, I didn't look that way on the outside. Everything looked just great, but it really wasn't. And what was the issue is that I was searching for the purpose to life. I couldn't believe that we get up every day to go out and make money, to buy food, to live another day, to go to work, to make money, to buy food. It made no sense. What's the purpose to all this? And I really wanted to know, and I searched into different religions, and I searched in environmentalism, social justice movements, and of course, education. Like, I threw myself into learning all kinds of knowledge, and that's how I ended up at Harvard. And, I was just studying everything, searching for wisdom. And I eventually found it. I'm very grateful. And I think I'm going to tell the story of the garden party. Like, when I was at the garden party at Harvard, I was invited to this exclusive garden party with there was the children of the famous Rockefellers and Moynihans and Kennedys. And I found that it was like a place where everybody wants to be at this exclusive party, like what people are striving for in terms of wealth and fame and power. And yet up there was nothing more special than what an interaction that you have with anybody else. So there's really nothing up there. It's kind of a mirage up there. I feel like it was a blessing to get to see that and know that that's nothing to strive for. And in fact, on that beautiful sunny day, the storm clouds filled up the sky, and there was a huge thunderstorm, and that was the end of the party. And I felt like it was proof that there's something higher, there's something greater than all this on earth. And I didn't know what it was, and I kept searching. And then in between my first and second year of medical school, I got to go to Israel for 6-week vacation. But during that time, I met this amazing rabbi who actually taught me about my own heritage, which I didn't know about, which is so amazing. It was kind of in my own backyard was the treasure, the buried treasure. So what this unusual rabbi, who's no longer alive, what he taught me, his name was Rabbi Weinberg, he taught that the purpose of life is to experience the greatest pleasure possible, which sounds like hedonistic. It doesn't sound like what a rabbi might say, but what it means is, what gives us the most lasting pleasure in life it's the spiritual pleasures. What revives our soul, what gives our soul nourishment are the most lasting pleasures. So that's what I learned. And when I learned how to nourish my soul, then there was no longer a need for the food addictions, because that's where the emptiness inside comes from in everybody's life. If we don't nourish our souls with what they need, then we are perpetually hungry. We're hungry, and what we get, the pleasures we have don't sustain us. We're always craving lasting pleasure. Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Very interesting. Also, you speak about 5-letter, right? Can you please explain us what is that?
Yes, so what he taught is what is found in ancient mystical wisdom. So these are not just things off of this rabbi's head or off of my head. This is based on the most ancient wisdom there is, because it's really the instructions for living that came with life. And when the universe was created, there's 5 levels to the human soul.
Okay.
And these correspond to the 5 levels of pleasure. So the most basic level of pleasure are the physical pleasures. And that relates to the life force. That's the level of the soul that connects to our body. And what revives our body and revives our soul at the same time are all the physical pleasures, all the pleasures that we get with our senses. And food is the most basic one. So that's why so many people, it's the most widespread addiction there is that people get stuck on the pleasure of food. It was designed to be pleasurable. Like I was explaining, food could have been just a pill that we take every day, a tasteless pill. But instead, it was designed to be the most pleasurable way possible in terms of like a bright orange. It becomes brightly colored when it's ready to be picked from a tree. Before that, it's not brightly colored. Everything was designed to give us the height of pleasure possible. So it becomes brightly colored when it's ready for us to eat. Or an apple, we pick it off a tree, it becomes bright red, but it didn't look this way when it was still growing. When it wasn't ripe, it wasn't bright enough to eat. It's amazing how the world was designed. In fact, one of my children's books is called Hashem's Candy Store. It's about how something like a potato, it's not brightly colored because we should not want to bite into it right away. It's not attractive. It's not attractive to our senses. So the Almighty is telling us, the Almighty who designed potatoes is telling us, first you should cook it to get the most pleasure out of this. Don't bite into this. But this, you just peel it. It comes with its own wrapper. You peel it. It stays perfectly juicy inside of this peel. And you can eat it right away. While the things that you have to I explain this in the book too, like a nut. You have to use a nutcracker. It's not brightly colored. Don't try biting into it. It's not going to be a pleasure. So everything was designed with the infinite amount of intelligence to give us the most pleasure possible. It has most food has an aroma. It's beautiful to look at, and it's yummy to taste. So all these natural things. And so people can get stuck on a physical pleasure like eating, like food. And how do you get over that? You can do something else on the same level of pleasure, like music.
Yeah, it's sorry, just to intervene a little bit. So people usually, whatever they try to do, even when they are with people that they love, they like to enjoy the food. It's like they always try to make a better food. Just in one sense, it's like we are into the food. It's like, and of course, it's very easy to be addicted, right? And it's a need as well. But the
Yes.
need is different, and an addiction is different. Then, yeah, please. Sorry, I'll keep on.
Exactly. Exactly. A person has an addiction when their life becomes unmanageable. And that's it. for me, my life was unmanageable because I was so focused on this craziness. I wasn't eating according to being hungry. I was eating to have more pleasure in life and to fill the emptiness inside. And that's what people do when they overeat. It's not out of hunger.
Okay.
People are overeating in order to fill an emptiness within, which can be filled by other pleasures. So that's what we have to have clarity about. And how do you know this? Like, for instance, if you're in the middle of overeating, you can ask yourself this question: is it my body that's hungry or my soul? And when you ask that question, the neurons that are firing at the top of your brainstem, those are the fight or flight neurons. And they fire when you feel a sense of scarcity in your life. It could be alienation or stress, whatever is getting a person to overeat. And instead, if you ask the question, is it my body that's hungry or my soul? Then the neurons go all the way up to the prefrontal cortex, to your higher consciousness, and you're suddenly asking a question that is elevating you. So the neurons are firing in a better place. And if you ask that question, then you could think of, what else could I do that could bring me pleasure right now besides continuing to overeat? Like, if you just reach out and press a button, you could be playing music, and then you could get up and stretch or dance, and that brings you pleasure. Or you could go outside and be in nature, and you could feel the sunshine, you could feel the breeze on you. And suddenly, if you do these things, you will have forgotten about the big bag of potato chips you were eating, because you're getting a new kind of pleasure. And you can be doing this all the time in your life. Once you've had enough that meets your physical hunger, then you can realize there's an abundance of other pleasures in life. And I was just telling you now about some of the physical pleasures, and then we can go up the pleasure ladder if you want to go.
No, that's very clear. But yeah, I just make it I try to visualize a little bit, and then okay, I broke up with somebody. I don't go to the fridge to get the ice cream or whatever. So I do something else. So I go out. I listen to the music. Maybe I try to dance, which is not so easy, but it's like that is what I got. If it's what you meant, right?
Exactly. You realize that there's no scarcity. If you break up with someone, you're feeling a scarcity of pleasure in your life. You have to remind yourself that there's an abundance of pleasure. If you just look outside and you see the beautiful trees, you know that this world was designed for our pleasure. In fact, the proof of that is when a person has children, what they want for their children more than anything is for them to have a life of pleasure. They want them to have the most pleasure possible. That's the way to recognize that that's what the Almighty actually wants for us. We were created just so that we could experience the greatest pleasure possible. That's our purpose for being here. It doesn't mean we're not going to have challenges in life. And the challenges can get us to even greater levels of pleasure as we can overcome them. So basically, so that's the most basic level is physical.
Yeah, that's the first one, right?
That's the first level. The second level, which you're referring to, the second level is love. And according to this unique rabbi's definition, the definition of love is the emotional pleasure that we get when we focus on the virtues of another. So it doesn't mean waiting for love to come into your life. You never have to wait for love. You can create love within yourself by focusing on what you appreciate about someone else. For sure, everybody can think of one other being that they can appreciate. It could even be a pet, whatever. But this, at each level on the ladder of pleasure, we bring more connection into our lives. On the first level, we're connecting to different parts of the physical creation in this world. On the second level, we're connecting to other beings. So we're coming out of ourselves more, because the whole problem, why do people have addictions, is they feel alienated, they feel separated, they feel isolated. So we bring pleasure in by adding connection into our lives.
It's like it's a need for us as human to love, right? That's okay. Good. So
Yes.
That is the second level, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is empowering. This level of pleasure never involves pleasures that other people need to give to us. These are all pleasures that we can bring into our lives at any moment of life, even just by thinking. In fact, the ticket to get up from one rung to the next is gratitude. It's having gratitude for all the things in our life, and then it's having gratitude for another person on the second level. We're feeling gratitude by appreciating other people. And now, on the third level,
yeah, please, yeah.
the third level is bringing more meaning into our life by doing meaningful things.
Okay.
And this is, again, this brings pleasure to a more lasting pleasure. Each level brings a more lasting pleasure, brings us more connection. Now we can connect into our communities. We can do acts of kindness and bring, this all fills us with a more lasting pleasure, even than levels 1 and 2. And level 4 is creativity. Here we're tapping into the creative flow of the universe. We are tapping in, and we're actually doing an active, something meaningful, but it's even an active creation in the world. We're adding something of ourselves into the world by doing something creative. And we are, you know how when, like I was explaining, when you do something creative, you don't feel like, when you're in the middle of it, you don't feel like eating or even sleeping. You are in a special zone of such great pleasure while you are in the midst of creating something. And as you'll notice, each of these levels, we emulate the Almighty more and more in each of these levels, the act of the physical, and then loving and doing meaningful things, and now being creative, which is, of course, what the Almighty, the source of all, has done for us, for all of us and the universe. And yeah. Did you want to say?
Yeah, it came to me the story of Honoré de Balzac, the French writer. When he was writing something, he just sat there for 2 or whatever days, and he was like just write and write and write and write. It was like, for him, nothing else existed, just a pen and a piece of paper.
Yes.
Yeah. And
exactly.
It's like you forget about eating and you forget about other stuff because you are,
Exactly. It's a special zone. This is why a person can even have these pleasures if they're in prison. Even a person in prison can get to these levels of pleasure, because you still have your mind and you have your heart and you can love and you can create. So nobody can take these pleasures away from you. This is totally empowering. And the highest level is transcendence. Transcendence is recognizing the oneness of everybody and everything, and that we all have one source, and that we're all connected. When we breathe out, we are giving breath to all the vegetation. The vegetation that all needs our carbon dioxide, and the plants are all giving us the oxygen we need. It's a continuous symbiosis that we are all connecting with each other. The world was created that way. We don't recognize it all the time, but really, transcendence is when the veil is lifted of the sense of separation between us, because we really all share so much. And so, as you see, each level brings us to a greater level of pleasure, a greater level of connection, and a greater level of connection to our souls and to the source of all our souls. So this is how you can see how this is what nourishes our souls, being aware of all these pleasures and recognizing that there's an abundance, and that they're available at every moment, that we can choose to bring them into our lives. And that's why when we recognize this, there's no longer a need for the addictions in our lives. The addictions are because we are stuck, because we don't recognize the abundance of pleasure that's available to us.
I have a question. So there are five, we said, five levels. Now, for the first one, we said that people can be addicted. But is it possible for people to be addicted in all these stages?
That's a good question. Wow. I don't even know the answer. It could be. I'm not sure.
For food, of course, food.
That's such a great question. No one's ever asked me that, and I love that question. Actually, I'm going to have to think about it and get back to you.
Yeah, sorry. Just the first one, of course, it's possible because people go for food and we know the end of that. And also in love, we have some guys that when they fell in love, they forget for anything.
Yeah, but okay, so here's the answer. That's kind of, the rabbi calls that a counterfeit love. That's infatuation.
Okay.
It's not when we fall in love, then we don't really have our brains intact. Right. You know what I mean? It's like the kind of love we're talking about is it's a lasting love. It's not one that's going to go away when the person gets old or starts having wrinkles and isn't as beautiful anymore. I mean, this is a more lasting love that relates to appreciating. Of course, you can appreciate the physical beauty of things, but you also appreciate their soul. You appreciate their character traits and what makes them. So I would say it's on a deeper level, because these are all pleasures that affect our soul. If we're doing them in a genuine way, then they are not addictions. And actually, if we're doing them in this way that uplifts our soul, then we won't have, they don't form addictions, because when we're nourishing our soul, it doesn't create the addiction. It's when we're attached to our body that the addiction happens, when we get too attached. So I would say, yeah, thank you for helping me get to the answer on that. I think.
Thank you. One thing I was to say, there are five, we said, right? Is it possible to have a balance of these five levels, or?
Oh, yes. And I forgot to mention that the two highest levels we only get glimpses of in this world. We do not remain on the level of creativity and transcendence, which is a state of awe and bliss. We don't remain there like on a continuous basis. On the first three levels, we could be on those. We spend most of our lives, hopefully, on those three levels of pleasure: physical, love, and meaning. And the creativity and transcendence we get glimpses of in this world, and the real pleasure of constant creativity and rebirth is in the world to come, and transcendence. But here on earth, we are experiencing the first three levels. And I forgot what your question was already.
It's like I'll say.
Oh, the balance. Yes. So yeah, I mean, we can flow through these three levels all the time, and glimpses of the upper levels, like I was explaining, when we are under a starry sky at night, we get glimpses of that awe, but we don't stay in that state forever. We remember what it's like to be out at night under the sky with all the stars shining, and we have that sense of the awesomeness of the universe. And we keep that with us as a lasting pleasure to return to. And it helps to enliven our soul, but we don't stay there. We'd never do anything, in our lives. So it is a balance. It's a flow. We flow through all these different experiences of pleasure throughout our days too. But mainly we're on the first three levels of pleasure, hopefully, during most of our days.
And I think also we can trick ourselves if we to do not eat, so we try to create, or we try to do something else, right?
Right, we can try to uplift ourselves.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. Once we have the awareness, this is why I'm spending so much time now in my life sharing this, because it can help everybody. The addictions are widespread, and we all need more joy in our lives. This is just universal. So I feel it's so important to be spreading this important information, and that's, that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
And we really do appreciate that very much. If people, our audience, want to know more about you, where they can find you.
Oh, yeah. So all my books are on my Amazon author page. I'll hold one up. It probably comes out backwards. This is my memoir, Searching for God in the Garbage. It's about how I went searching and what I found. I'll show you two more. These are children's books. I Want to Be Famous. This is about a boy. He just wants to be famous. And he becomes famous overnight, like anybody could through a YouTube video. He becomes famous. Someone captures him. But then, like fame, it just goes away really quick. How do you keep that joy? Again, by nourishing your soul. He recognizes that if he gets his soul to shine, he'll be in the spotlight for the rest of his life. You don't need the outer spotlight to shine. You got to shine from within. And one more book I'm going to show you is Where is God? It's about finding God. These are children's books. Finding God in nature, finding God everywhere. That's what you're able to do when your eyes are opened to understand that this life is really here for our pleasure. That's what you could do. Yeah.
I personally really appreciate what you shared with us, and we hope to see you again. So we'll be here in our show. So it's a pleasure to have had you, and please also, guys, if you want to follow, we will give all the details. If you want to know more, please just follow the links down in the video, and please subscribe and tell more about our show to your friends. We want to share what we have. Thank you very much again. Goodbye.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.